Christopher Lang and Kelly Pults and Lauren Bilsky and Jordan Helmick, welcome to Ride and Tie Tongue-Tied Interviews.
Glad to be
Glad
here.
to be here.
All right. You are here because you two were the top two teams in the World Championship this year, 2025, and you were only separated by 2 minutes over a 30-mile course. And so ran a tough competitive race. The third team was Leslie Skiba and Emma Walsh, and they were just 9 minutes behind Jordan and Lauren. And so it was a particularly the first three was just a tough competitive race. And we want to hear all about it. But before we get to there, I want to hear a little bit about your origin stories. You guys are superheroes to do what you have done. And so you got an origin story. So how was it that you got into Ride and Tie? I doubt it was a radioactive spider bit you, but if it was, I'd like to hear about it. Chris, we're going to start with you. Tell me about your origin story in Ride and Tie.
Sure. I was kind of a fluke. I had a chance to try it out, and mostly I loved being around the horses. I didn't know that I had the horse gene. Growing up, I didn't spend much time around horses. So, and I do ultra running. And so it was a perfect combination, loving horses, loving running. And so now I own a horse. I own a truck and trailer, and I'm engaged to another riding tire, Carrie Barris, and we're planning on buying a farm. I'm all in, and I plan to do this as long as I can.
It is amazing how once you get in, you get sucked all the way in. Yep. And you're a good example. All right, Kelly, what is your origin story?
Well, I live within an hour of all the Old Dominion endurance rides. So, and I had some friends who were doing LDs, and then someone mentioned riding tie, and they said, you really should think about it because they're always looking for partners that can ride and run. And Old Dominion has a ride and tie clinic every summer. So I signed up to go to the clinic, and I was thinking, just attend the clinic and see what it's about. And when I signed up, I said, "Oh, we'll get you a partner and a horse. Come prepared." And that was my first experience of the whole flexibility of just finding partners, getting on any horse and heading down the trail.
Great. One of the things I love about both you and Lauren, and we get to Lauren next, is that you guys don't only compete, but you both are managing rides and finding other ways to make sure that the sport kind of continues. And that's just wonderful. So thank you for that. So Lauren, your origin story, and this one I'm really interested into. I've talked a little bit about it. Tell me about your origin story.
Well, this is actually a little embarrassing. I was always obsessed with horses as a kid, but I didn't actually ride. My parents never rode, and they hoped it was a phase. But they did let me subscribe to horse magazines. So like I subscribed to like Horseman's Illustrated or something. So like somewhere like 20 years ago, I read an article about ride and tie, and like I liked soccer, I ran, I liked horses. It was like this sounds perfect. So, fast forward 8 years ago, I bought my first horse when I was living up in Boston. And I was like, I now have a horse. Like I didn't trail run, I don't trail ride. So I was looking up where the nearest ride and tie was. And at the time, the answer was Virginia. And I didn't have like, so I was playing polo and so didn't really have access to that and kind of put it on the side. And then 5 years ago, I moved to Pittsburgh and hey, Virginia is a lot closer. But of course, it was during the pandemic. So actually, the first ride and tie I did was organized. I was boarding at the Powers Polo School, and we organized one around the farm. And it didn't necessarily go super great because I kept up with the horses for the first mile, handed off to my partner who was a kid who couldn't control the horse. And let's just say I ran the rest of the course. But it was a lot of fun. And so then 2 years ago, I would just like, was just like everyone I knew. I was like, who wants to try ride and tie? And I got to convince Jordan. So I guess he can tell the rest of the story of like, I don't really know. I guess he said yes. I don't really know why.
Okay. Well, that's a great lead. And so Jordan, your origin story.
Yeah, you got the start of it so far. So I'm more of a horse person than a runner. And so 16 years ago or so, I started riding horses and took horsemanship 101 in college and just kind of stuck with it since then, doing a little bit of everything. Um, Trying to try all the sports out. And in 2020, I started playing polo, and it was at the same farm where Lauren was there. So that's how I met Lauren. We played polo together for a few years, and um, yeah, and then she said, do you want to do a ride and tie? And I was like, oh, what's a ride and tie? I don't know what a ride and tie is. She explained it, and I was still confused, but I'm like, okay, I'll try this. Like I didn't run, not really at all, and so maybe in high school when you do the physical fitness challenge, 20 years before. So I was like, I'll start running a little bit, and started to enjoy that. And we did our first race in 2023, I believe, was our first one. So did a 10-mile race, which was a very long distance for me to run, and just kind of been picking up the mileage the last couple of years. But it's been fun. It's been good to I've really enjoyed the running more than I thought. And then riding is always great, of course. So, I did trail riding, I did polo and other medieval games and other horseback events, and riding time's really starting to stick. So it's been fun.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, a lot of people come into ride and tie from the endurance world, and a lot of people like Chris come into the ride and tie from the ultra running world. But you guys came into it not completely, but partly from the polo world. And
We had
so,
no idea what we were doing.
say what?
We had no idea what we were doing.
With ride and tie, or with polo, or both?
Well, I mean, we knew polo, or I did, but with ride and die, because we signed up for the no frills 10 miler, and I'm emailing Janice. I'm like panicking about like away vet checks, and she's like, "It's a 10 miler. What are you asking about?" And like, yeah, I don't even know that they trusted we were just gonna show up, because like, we had no help preparing for this. Like, we just signed up. I convinced Jordan to haul us. We took our two polo ponies and someone who hadn't ridden since middle school and someone who'd ridden never, and just like showed up to No Frills. I think Chris, you were there, and like we had lots of questions.
It was quite the experience. I do remember looking at the prior ride and tie entry list, and there's normally not a lot of competitors. So I'm thinking maybe 10 trailers or something, and we show up and there's hundreds of trailers. And it's like I didn't realize that endurance, they followed around endurance, they're always paired together. So it was like an early learning experience when we first started. That there's what did we get into? There's a ton of horses, there's a ton of people, and we'd never camped with the horses and so forth. So it was a learning experience for sure.
So, how does a horse go from polo to ride and tie? What are the comparisons and contrasts there?
I think it's great training. That's a great crossover sport. A horse that can do polo is
Yeah.
seems well suited to do ride and tie.
Well, and I have to admit, in the beginning, 10 miles sounded really far, and like for April, and like I'm always like really cautious. Like, so in polo, we tend to give the horses a couple months off. So like my horses had like 3 or 4 months off before it started. Like I had to go find a new boarding barn that had an indoor to bring them up, because I usually don't start riding till like March, and like bring them back into work, and I'm like freaking out about it, of like, can they do this, when like now realizing that, hey, like most pasture fit horses can make it through a 10 miler. I was really worried about it. But it was a learning curve of uneven surfaces, and especially my older mare at the time, like she's now 23, she's like half blind in one eye, her fetlock's fused, and so picking up feet and see, and like they didn't understand the concept of following the trail. So like I was on foot and my two friends were on the two horses, and like I just look up and they're like in the trees because they like weren't steering, so the horses just like took them straight into a tree, and like they're just like standing there like branches all over them, just like chatting. And I was like, guys, you have to steer. Because like the horses like did not understand the concept. No, but like no, like they were just like, we ride on grass, we ride in the arena. And so it's been really, really cool seeing the difference between like then when like we had to walk on everything, and now we can like trot almost everything, and just like fig and like now my horses will usually follow the trail. Like maybe if there's two trails, they'll have an issue, but like I don't have to like if there's a switchback, like we're not going to end up off the cliff because they kept going straight. Like I'm not kidding. Like it was like I watched like at Old Dominion, like my friend just like walked like basically walked straight into a tree, because I mean like the horse wasn't walking herself into the tree, but like just was going to scrape her off because the trail turned and she didn't. It was pretty funny.
I was just gonna say the training with the start and stop on polo, I think, helps with riding tie. But what you're describing is the polo horses getting used to trail riding, which that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
And
It
I
is.
actually, I was accidentally brake checking you, Chris, when like I was asking my horse to trot because I wasn't comfortable with him cantering, and he kindly kept slowing down but staying in the canter. Like he was just showing off how,
I I
because
remember
like,
that.
yeah, because in polo, like they don't trot, they just canter. So learning to like trot on uneven stuff, like he just like he was listening to me telling him to slow down, but he was just like cantering in place when all I wanted him to do was trot. And it's just sort of like so refiguring out like they're doing what they're supposed to do, but also like now there's this new thing to do. And he's starting to figure out of like I'm allowed to canter here, I'm not allowed to canter there, but
Mhm.
like also sometimes gets a little sassy and will do other cues.
That's great. And one of the
Yeah.
themes that's already emerging is you get in riding tie and you get in deeper and deeper and deeper. So Kelly just goes to the clinic to learn, and next thing she's doing riding tie. And Chris starts riding tie. Next thing he's got a horse and a truck and a trailer and is looking for a farm. And you're doing polo and you're thinking 10 miles is really, really far. Next thing you know, you guys are finishing a 30-mile course, so world championship in second place. And so it's got a way of doing that for us. That's good. Well, thank you for all your origin stories. So now I do want to move into this year. So our world championship this year was at Cripple Creek, Virginia. It was as a part of the Iron Mountain Jubilee. And Kelly and Chris are no strangers to the winners circle. Back in 2022, you guys were the East Coast regional champions, and it was the East Coast Championship. However, because COVID took a little longer to folks out west to kind of loosen up a little bit, it was the only championship that year. And so we can't really call it World Championship, but it kind of was a little more than just your standard East Coast. So you almost have two World Championships together. But Kelly, tell me between 2022 and 2025, which one was maybe a little more sweet, and maybe there was some more comparison and contrast you want to give me.
Well, I would say it's definitely more competitive now. We have a lot of faster teams, and the one at Iron Mountain, we definitely pushed it very hard. I mean, all three teams were together, like until, I mean, neck and neck until that 7 mile mark. And we knew that they were right behind us. We didn't see them, but we knew they were there. In 2022, that was still, I think we did that course really fast. But again, for the last 10 miles, we really didn't have anybody pushing us. So it's definitely more competitive now.
Good. Yeah. And boy, it sure is. We only had 8 teams in the championship this year, which I'm sure is the smallest championship in riding tie history, but it was so wonderfully competitive. And that's great. As I mentioned before, I think it's amazing that Larden and Jordan were just 2 minutes behind you. So you were clearly getting pushed the whole way, no doubt. Well, Chris, part of your origin story actually is your first riding tie ever was also your first world championship victory. And then you went on to win the East Coast Regional with Kelly, and now you've won a second world championship. So tell me about compare, contrast the three. Was one sweeter than the other? All that kind of good stuff.
Oh, they keep getting better. The first one I didn't know what I was doing. I think we got lucky. It was hot that day, and the other teams got tired. Um, but yeah, so this year was very exciting. A lot of the races that we do throughout the season are what I would say training rides. We're not necessarily being competitive or racing, but the championship, you show up with your A game and you go. And like Kelly was describing that the past races that we've done, Kelly and I, we pull out ahead and then we kind of cruise because we don't have anybody chasing us. But this year, we had two teams we just could not break free from. And so it was a lot more exciting. And I mean, we were going as fast as we could. So I love the competition side. It makes for such a different race. I always like the training and the social rides, but the competition, it's just a very different experience, and I really enjoyed it this year.
That's great. And that leads into my next question. So, Kelly, You guys are an experienced team. You've done this before. You've had some success. What strategy did you have at the start of the race? What was your plan?
Generally, I stay on the horse just 3 minutes. So we do a lot of exchanges. We were definitely doing very frequent exchanges and really efficient exchanges. I did something different this time. There were a couple of times that I actually tied Comet while I was still mounted on him, since he's the perfect height. I just pulled up to the tree, tied, got off, and then ran down the trail. And then it was a little different. Usually Chris is running to the finish. He has that awesome kick where he can beat a cantering horse to the finish. But this time I was on the ground and finished, and we were able to finish together. He came with Comet, so that was special.
That's great. I have this great progression of pictures that Becky Pearman took of you coming up the hill, and then you turning around and seeing Chris come up the hill, and the two of you with your holding hands. And it's already going to be in the newsletter. I've already got it laid out in the newsletter, but it really tells that story. It's a neat picture, a neat progression. So I'll make sure you get to see those. Tell me a little bit, Kelly, about your vet check strategy. How do you run vet checks?
Well, we kind of messed that up this year. We weren't quite sure where that vet check was. We were thinking we had at least a half a mile to go. And we were together, we talked about it. We said, we can make one more exchange before the vet check. And we rounded the corner. And as soon as we did, there was a vet check. And we looked at each other like, oh. And we came in, everybody was like, you're not supposed to be together right now. I said, we know, it just came up too soon for us. So that was where we lost a little bit by coming in together. Normally Chris would ride in and he would be gone before I get there. And then all three horses were together at the vet check. Okay. And of course, Ray never has any problems passing down. Comet originally passed down, but then when Ray left, he got a little excited because he just wanted to go back out on the trail. So, we had a great crew, and Lee came and lowered his head and kind of zen Comet out for me. And then we were able to head out, and we caught Chris pretty soon.
Okay. So Chris, there's an old adage, and we've already heard a little bit of it already, that all plans fall apart the moment you kind of hit the competition. So how did you guys have to shift your strategy? Partly was at the vet check, it sounds like, but maybe in other ways too, given the competition.
Yeah, just what Kelly described. So our plan in the first loop was to build a lead, and then the strategy with the vet check, I would ride in and then run out, and we had crew to take care of the horse, and then Kelly would come in. And we messed up. We came into the vet check together. We lost that lead. And I remember the three runners left the vet check together. And I didn't tell anybody this, but my legs were cramping when I came out of that vet check. So that's when, in my head, our plans fell apart. And so I had to slow down and do some stretching and take care of my legs. And then we just had to work our same strategy from the first loop of trying to build that lead again. And I mean, we were exchanging on top of the other two teams until I think it was around mile 25 or 26, right before you hit that last big climb, I think is where Kelly and I pulled ahead a little bit.
Okay. All right. So Lauren, how about y'all? What was your strategy at the start?
Well, Jordan, this was your idea to switch up the start strategy.
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah,
Jordan,
you want to go through the start?
Yeah.
So we switched the start almost. Our strategy is generally Lauren's always in the front. She's the faster runner by a pretty decent margin, and so the idea is to keep her always in front all the time that I'm untying the horse and mounting without assistance. She gets additional miles, and so she stays in the front. But at the beginning, we were actually trying to build a lead as well, because Argo does better when he's not around other horses, because you tie him next to another horse, they take off, then he gets excited, he's harder to mount. So we wanted to vary up the strategy a little bit to keep him just kind of cool, by himself, as much as possible. The beginning of the races aren't always, it's not always possible, but as much as possible, kind of have our own strategy. And then after the start, just resume our normal strategy with Lauren in the front, tying the horse, and then I'll stay behind the rest of the race. So that was our starting strategy. I feel like we stuck to it quite well. We do a lot. Lauren does a lot of tracking, so she on her watch she knows exactly how many ties we did and where they were. So it's fun to track us different races to see how we've done. But that does influence our strategy a bit. I don't know anything else, Lauren, that you have.
Yeah, I guess I usually do what Kelly does, and like I ride like 3 minutes or less or like half a mile and get off and tie. And I mean, so like I lost Argo's watch at Mucklerats, and I wasn't gonna bother with it this time, but like at Mucklerats, I'm like every time you get on and off, hit the lap button, so I know how long Argo stands around. Like I estimate that he's probably standing there like 3 minutes ish between us. And also Argo was a lot calmer there because his I had to leave my other horse at home, so he wasn't as anxious to stay in camp, so he was chill. I think that yeah, so I think I probably should have run the first mile faster. I think that was my bad.
All right.
But
So,
yeah.
what was your vet check strategy,
Mhm.
Lauren?
I'm actually really proud of our vet check strategy, and we did it to the dot. So this was also our first time with an away vet check and our first time having crew. So I was really excited to try to take advantage of that. And also, so Argo's an appendix. He's bigger than these average Arabs. His resting heart rate is 56, and obviously you have to pulse down to 64. So know that he needs a little bit extra time compared to the other horses. So even though like he wasn't breathing hard, like yeah, he's still a big boy. So the plan was for me to ride like a mile and a quarter. But as Chris said, like, where's the vet check? And so I had mapped out the course based on the map of what I thought it was in all trails, and I thought it was at mile 14. Then in the rider briefing, they say mile 15. And I'm like, all right, Jordan, we're gonna have to guess. And so I took the horse, and like after like about like a mile, I catch up to Chris. I don't and he like and you were surprised to see me again. It's like I'd been riding and I like caught the gap and I was like, I think the vet check's kind of soon. And you're like, no, it's in a while. I was like, we'll find out who's right. And it came up when I thought it was. So I'd had the horse for a mile and a half, which was probably a little long, but that's still okay. That was still within our window. And so I hand off the horse to my crew, refill my bottle. Chris heckles me, and I'm out there and in like 3 minutes, which I was proud of myself. Still had to take a bathroom break on the trail, but it's fine. And I estimated that Jordan would catch me in 30 minutes. And he did. Like pretty much exactly 30 minutes later, like the horse came up to me. So I think we can still work on our vet check strategy of so like Argo ended up like because you caught me like a little bit like 2.5, 3 miles in, and like we don't usually do such long intervals. So like the horse was a little tired at that point. So I think that's just something for us to work on of like he doesn't usually ride for 30 minutes straight because we were always doing ride and tag and stuff. But we were on schedule. So I was pretty proud of ourselves, and we kept seeing like and even though I had like y'all had your horses within 2 miles and I was running an extra mile, I was still like, with the ride and tie team. So I was pretty proud of myself running out of the vet check. And we were all still within sight. And like I think the last time I saw you, Chris, or, like any of the three of you, I saw Chris tie Comet when I got off. No, I saw Chris mounting Comet when I got off to tie Argo. I stole your tree at like 4 or 5 miles to go, and that was the last time I saw you till the finish line. Well, until like the gravel road leading up to the finish.
Okay.
And I think you didn't see me, is I think what we learned.
I didn't.
Yeah,
And I was like
sometimes
right
there
behind
is. Yeah, sometimes
You
you're
were
sneaking up. You don't want them to know you're behind them. That's for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Good deal. Okay. Well, we've already heard lots of stories, but I wonder if there are other things that happened out on trail or even in your prep time or during the vet in or even afterwards, whatever things you're going to remember about this particular race and this big experience. And Kelly, I'll put you on the spot first. What you got?
This is the first time I rode Comet, but I've seen him out on the trail and knew that he loved his job and he's a professional and he's definitely a blast to ride. I mean, he just went never tired. When we came to a technical trail section, I didn't interfere with him, never tried to steer him around things. I would just always tell him, like, hey, it's getting rocky. Make a good decision here. Or that's really deep mud. Make a good decision. And he always did. He knows exactly where to put his hoofs to take care of himself and take care of his rider. So he was a very fun little pony.
That's great. And we should give credit. Chris mentioned earlier that he's engaged to Carrie Barris. Carrie Barris owns Comet, so she had owned y'all Comet for the day. Yeah. All right. Chris, what are you going to remember about that experience?
So, yeah, I would echo. So, Comet was a rock star. I've ridden Comet before, and he's great on trail. But as I said before, we were pushing it the entire race, and Comet was more than willing to push it with us. And Comet is 14-1. And I just want to say that makes our exchanges a couple seconds faster than the 15 or taller horses.
Yeah.
And I want to add also, Kelly, you were a very strong runner.
Oh, not nearly as strong as you, Chris.
Kelly? Oh, no. So you were running really good. I never. So we made our exchange, and I would mount Comet. It would take me a little while to catch you. So you were running very strong.
Very good. Very good. Okay, Lauren, what will you remember about this championship?
Well, even though we lost, Argo did win BC, which
That's
I'm
right.
extremely proud of. This was
Yes.
our first time standing for BC, and I guess I just want to like brag about Argo for a little bit. That I guess I bought him 4 years ago, and it was not love at first sight. We did not necessarily get along, and in fact, they actually told me I wasn't allowed to when I was trying him that I wasn't allowed to mount from the ground because he would kick me. Fast forward, like obviously we ground mounted like 30 times and no one got kicked. So like we worked a lot on manners and also like on fitness. Like he couldn't canter in a small circle without breaking it because he didn't have the strength. And now we're BC. And so I'm really, really proud of him. And also that like February, like 2 years ago, like the same year we did our first ride and tie in the fall, that February he actually colicked really bad and was in the hospital for 4 days and almost died. So we went from almost dead to like we tried our first ride in like the fall and he failed. We failed to complete because he was lame. Turned out like the chiro came and adjusted him and he's back. And so I've put in a lot of hours in the past 2 years training him and me. We were taking riding lessons and learning dressage and like we've both become a lot stronger and it's like really, really awesome. And like we work really hard and I give him a lot of crap. Like he's my slower horse. He's not always the most enthusiastic. He's not always the most cooperative. He tries to test you. Like the last ride and tie, I may or may not have let him go, and he ran a mile down the trail. And but he was an absolute rock star that day. He put on his game face, and he like I'm really proud of how he did. And yeah, it's been really great to see.
That's great. That's great. So you've got Comet, the 14-1 Arab pony, and you've
Mhm.
got Argo. How tall is he?
I think he's 15 too.
Yeah, so the
And
15-2
also, he also
appendix.
used to, whenever you tried to mount, he would swing his butt away from you, which was also super challenging for ride and tie. So we worked on now he will side pass to you on a mounting block. And like, I think this was the best he's ever behaved for mounting. I guess I don't mount much from the ground. Jordan can attest, but I think he actually generally cooperated, which was really fun and exciting.
He did
Yeah.
good. He did good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Jordan. So what are you going to remember?
Yeah, so there's two things. One, I'll echo what Lauren said. There is definitely the best condition for Argo. Lauren's put in a lot of time, effort, tracking to make sure that he was fit for the race, and that kind of paid off. And he did great. I couldn't be more happy with how Argo did, and he seemed to enjoy it. Even at the end, he was feeling good. So that was exciting. And then the second thing is just the competition with Chris and Kelly. We actually had a similar race last year at the East Coast Regional Championship at the short course, where Chris and Kelly, we were chasing them the whole time at Fort Valley, and we were minutes behind them in that race as well. So we've got a little competition here to try to catch them. Someday we'll beat them, but so this race felt a lot like that, even though it was longer. It's 30 miles instead of I think it was 15 last year. But it's fun to have competition. Same thing with Leslie and Emma. We were leapfrogging the whole time. I think Lauren was first into vet check. I happened to be the last out of vet check, but that was part of our strategy. But that constant leapfrogging, it's fun. It makes it exciting, and so it was a good time. I really enjoyed the competition out there.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And that is what it's all about. Well, congratulations to all of you. I should have mentioned the BC earlier because that is just so key and so important. But to win the world champions and be world champions, Chris and Kelly, congratulations to you. To be just 2 minutes behind. You said you lost. You didn't lose. You the second place is not the first loser.
Wow.
When my partner Mark and I started, Mark said, "I just don't want to come in dead last," and we did. We didn't come in dead last. We made that goal. That was our goal for the day. But anyway, congratulations on that, and a huge congratulations for BC too, because that is so important and so wonderful, and it says so much about how you care for the horse, not just during the race, but beforehand as well. So congratulations to all of you. And we will definitely be seeing you out there on trails in the years and months and years to come.